everybody. Can you hear me? Hi. Thank you. Okay, well, welcome everybody. It is exactly 6 o'clock East Coast time, and my name is Jenny Cho. I want to welcome everybody to our exciting discussion today. It's October 15th, 2020. I'm saying the date is a Thursday for the purposes of recording in posterity because time moves so fast. And that is why all of us are lovers of history as we understand the relevance that things that happened in the past has on our lives today. I'd like to welcome all of you and also invite you to utilize the chat. I just chatted all of you to send us your questions for Dr. Alex Azmi and myself and David Oye, we are all here. And we will address as many of them as we can. David is going to play a little bit of the film To Climb a Gold Mountain, and we're going to talk about it with our esteemed filmmaker, Dr. Alex Azmi. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Alex Azmi. I myself am currently in Maryland on the East Coast, and Dr. Azmi is joining us from Los Angeles. Or as he just wants to be called, Alex. He has a PhD, so I'm just like, Dr. Azmi. No, he's a wonderful, really talented in so many different fields, talented in information technology, as well as engineering and filmmaking and history. So if those of you out there, cross any of those fields, I'm sure Alex could answer those questions for you as well. His technical expertise far surpasses mine. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the Chinese American Museum, located in Washington, D.C., which had its opening last year. We'd like to thank David and Penny Yao for sponsoring this program, inviting us all and organizing. Thank you so much. We are supporters of Chinese American history, of Asian American history, and we like to think that even though we're thousands of miles apart, we create community. Thankful for this opportunity on Zoom. We are being recorded live on Facebook, so this recording will be available to play back for posterity, and David will be handling that. So I just wanted to make everybody aware.
Can you hear me?
Great. Well, I'm going to kick us off by allowing Alex to just tell us about his background. He has a really interesting personal story, and he is also, is a very personal story, one of immigration, one of education, family, and crossing so many fields. So Alex, will you tell us a little bit about your background and how that led you to filmmaking? Hello, everybody. And let me take this time to say hello, Ted Gong. Hi, Ted. Hi, Ed Liu, Alan Wang, Fen, Evelyn Moy, David Yao, Peter Du, Jennifer Tim. Did I say that right? Welcome, all of you, for chatting. Continue to say hi. All right, Alex, let's test your audio.
Okay, I'm back. Absolutely. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, that is terrific. First, what I start to say is it's really great honor to be here. It's thank you very much for inviting me. And the intro that you had for me is really wonderful. I was wondering who you're talking about, but thank you very much anyway for this great compliments. Just real quick about my background. I reach film rather indirectly. My background, professionally speaking, as you mentioned, is in engineering and information technology. I have a great interest in history, but not a scholar by any stretch of imagination. And I also love photography. Via photography, I was asked once to assist a cinematographer. And once I went there, I kind of figured more or less I can do that. And then I immediately, almost the same week, put an ad to start a new short film. And then I took it from there. So it is, it's one of these things that have a lot of interest in different areas, not really experienced in any of them, but good enough to just or know enough to just keep moving on.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, for those of you at home who don't know, Alex is from Egypt, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
And yes, please elaborate more.
Oh, absolutely. No, so I came back from Egypt to the US, went initially to South Dakota to get a master's degree. And then I moved from South Dakota to California and got a job and got my PhD, and I stayed here. I, like most of the other immigrants, have a similar story, not necessarily to the one in the film, but virtually everybody who came to the US, one way or another, had an interesting story that led him or led her to become here. I'm just one of these people.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so you came here from Egypt and then pursued a career in a completely different field.
In engineering, yes.
In engineering. And so I guess, does your left brain and right brain coexist in harmony? Has your technical background also kind of translated into your ability to tell stories and also filmmaking, because you're self-taught, is that right?
It's self-taught, that's correct. It really, for all practical matters, it's almost identical. I know that this sounds outrageous, but at least for documentaries, it is literally a project, like an engineering project, where you have to have a foundation, you have to have a structure to it. You have different steps you follow, you keep adjusting as you go. It's exactly what you do in engineering, it's just in a different field. It was exactly what I've done in IT. And it's literally creating a film is basically a large project. And very often in the industry, they refer to films as projects.
Wow.
And the very science of project management that's applicable to engineering and to information technology and to medicine is also applicable to filmmaking.
Yes. So currently you're a professor?
No, I just retired in December.
Oh, okay. You were just fresh off of being a professor, an instructor, having had an influence on many students. So tell me, Alex, when you were in Egypt, what exposure did you have to Chinese American, Asian American history? And when you got here to the States, how did your education expand and grow, leading you to the subject matter of this film?
Absolutely. So Egypt, while I'm originally from Egypt, I really lived in different countries. Obviously, most of the time when I was growing in Egypt, but because my parents had jobs in different countries, I also went with them. Had minimum exposure to non-Egyptians while I was in Egypt. While in the different countries, I had exposure to most of the people in these countries. When I came to the US, it is a melting pot, as you'd expect. And it is a tremendous opportunity to get to know other people from different areas, people with different backgrounds, people with the different backgrounds. And what really makes it very interesting is, while there's some different areas, there's really a lot of commonality. You'll find out that almost everybody, regardless of their background, for that matter, regardless of the gender, is very similar to everybody else. But everybody brings something unique. Something that this unique thing is because of their ethnic background or because of their gender, but more often is because they're just unique.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. And then...
So to answer the second part, how I ended with the film, I think it's, so was really interesting. The advantage of being independent filmmaker is that you will follow the story where it takes you. Initially, what we started to do was to create a short historical film about the history of Los Angeles, and we started with the Chinatown. In that very corner, in that very area, there are signs saying that there was a massacre in this area, and then started to look into that. And then it turned to be that the massacre in big part was because of, essentially because a woman to two men that were, two men and a woman, that's what started the issue. And the story was interesting enough that we thought we will make a short about this incident versus about the history itself. So we had the story. In the same time, it was Congresswoman Jenny Cho. She was going to the Congress to get what's called the regret resolution. And it kind of made sense to contrast that. 150 years ago, this what was happening. This lady came here in this terrible circumstances, and a massacre have happened. And now 2 generations later, her granddaughter, per se, not really her granddaughter, not her blood granddaughter, but figuratively speaking, become a congresswoman. Wouldn't that make an interesting story to compare the lives of both of them? The next iteration would have been, instead of having this comparison, it will make more sense to have other women in between, so you can see how things started, how things moved, and how we ended where we are today. Kind of a long different stories, one at the end of the other. So that's how we ended with this story. In like a lot of these things, you learn as you go. And one of the challenges that we had in the film is how to limit it to only 4 stories. Who are the 4 stories that you select? But also, how would you limit it to 4 stories? There's so many interesting stories, there's so many moving stories that we thought, we had much longer time to put into the film.
Right, and that brings up a really interesting question. But first, we have some questions from our audience. So what motivated you to produce this file that addresses Chinese-related issues, from Alan Wang? So I guess, why Chinese-related? Why not Japanese-related? Why not another ethnicity? Why not Egyptian-American-related, and so forth?
So again, it's just one of the advantages of the independence is you just go with the what I thought at the time the most interesting story that I had, which happened to be about the first lady that in that corner, which happened to be in Chinatown. So we went with the story, but immediately afterward, after we had the film, I reached out to the Japanese American Museum and told them, we have this film, and the film have the stories, and I would like to have a similar one for the Japanese. They were very interested, but just like a lot of these projects, things kind of fizzled down and didn't move to be a project. But at some point, I thought it would be really great to have similar stories from the different background. And one will be from the Middle East, not necessarily Egypt only, but from the Middle East, because there's a lot of commonalities in terms of the culture. People come in here. One would have been from Japan, as I mentioned. Another one I thought would be really very interesting is from Africa itself. But anyway, it's just ideas, but really didn't materialize. I hope that we'll have a chance to do it in the future. So
that's true. I think
that would be really terrific to have a series, not because as people come to the US, they bring a lot of stories, and regardless what the background is, you will see that we can relate to them. As we will know how this person feels, why this person left his or her land, what motivated them to come here, what challenges they had, how they felt about it, and all of these things. We will relate to it and will understand it, even if we don't understand the culture itself.
Well, that's wonderful, Alex. So we can look forward to some sequels and to some continuing series from you in future works. Yes, I mean,
so,
the process
yes,
of filmmaking
absolutely.
is just because you finish one film doesn't mean you're finished as a filmmaker. You have many more films to come. So we're excited for the future of Alex Azmi films. We have another question from Jennifer. I would love to hear an example of how the iterative process has influenced your filmmaking. I hear how it is used in animation, but not so much in docu and narrative. How the iterative process has influenced your filmmaking. So the process of repetition and the process of, I guess, themes, you know, the similar themes, I guess, in the topics that you pick, and then how you I guess how you framed each story of the four women. But before you go into that, do you want to do a little spoiler alert for the people who haven't seen the film? We have some people who haven't seen the film, so they're not quite sure how you've structured it when you say the four women. So do you want to do a little spoiler alert? And
Absolutely. So the story starts in the 1800s, and it starts with a girl that was brought against her will to the U.S. For all practical matters, would it mean like sex slave? I hate to use that term, but that was the idea, or that was the purpose back in the 1800s. And she represents a generation. We tell her a story. We tell her. So we have a short version in the one that is in Vimeo, and the one online, and in the full feature film, we have two ladies actually. We have one that we tell her story, how she was tortured and so on. And then we have another one that tried to run away 3 different times, and every time she got caught and what happened to her. But that's in the longer version. So that is the first phase, is how things were, that there was a massacre in that time, that a large number of the Chinese were killed in downtown Los Angeles. And after that, there was, to make things, the continue with the downturn, there was also the Chinese Exclusion Act that was designed for all practical matters to prevent the Chinese from coming to the US. Mind you, at the time, the number of Chinese in America was less than 1% of 1% of the population. So the idea that you could read a particular law for them is, yeah, you can read into it what you read into it, which is very negative. So that would have been the first phase. The second story starts in the 1900s. So we're done with the 1800, the 1900, and the person that we picked for that is an actress. Her name is Azmi Wang. Azmi Wang is a truly remarkable person. As a matter of fact, I have a separate project that I'm working on now, kind of a short about Azmi Wang herself, but it's not a documentary. It will be a story, not a documentary. But she's the second person. What happened in that time? What were the challenges, the new challenges for the Chinese American that are born in America now, that entering into the different fields? And in this particular case, it was the movie industry. What were the challenges? How she tried to get the different jobs, when she was successful, when she was not successful, and how she paved the road for additional generation to come in. And her story is very dramatic. And as I mentioned, she's very remarkable in many levels. She's a great actress. You have that. But she's also very intelligent as a person. She has her own writing. She has her own views. She has helped in the Second World War. So she was a very remarkable person on multiple levels. So that will be the second story, the different challenges that she had until she passed away. The first story, we struggled with different people, and we ended with Madame Chiang Kai-shek, how she represented the kind of transformation at the time. And then the last story we have is the story of a current person, who's Judy Chu, the Congresswoman Judy Chu, who is representative for one of the districts here in Los Angeles. In between, so each one, you'll have her story by itself. I mean, this is an interesting story. But in between, we intermingled other historical issues like the Chinese Exclusion Act, like what is a paper ploy when the Chinese Exclusion Act was repealed, and multiple other important items that we just put it as a part of the stories of the four women.
That's an amazing answer. Thank you, Alex. So that's a great overview of your film. So that kind of touches upon Susie's question, which was what inspired you to pick these four women as your protagonists. And the second part of that question, how did you do the research for this documentary?
So I must admit, I learned a lot during the film, learned a lot about the history, a lot more than when I started. But equally with that, we hired, I personally, along with the rest of the team, got books and went to the library and got articles. But as a part of that, we also made a list of experts in the field. So some research was done by interns and was done by researchers, people that we asked them to go and look for this particular issue, that particular topic, or what happened to this person and so on. And based on that, we put a series of questions for the experts. So when we met them, we were not asking very basic questions or questions that to just teach us. Rather, we were the questions were taken to the next level to add context or add material to the stories. So it is a combination of large combination. Some were interns, some were researchers, some was actual research that we've done ourselves. But most importantly, was the experience of the people that were there, like the 103 years old woman and the experts of the people in the field.
It takes a small village to make a film, right, Alex?
Very true, very true.
You didn't do it on your own.
Very true.
So I'm going to try and just show a minute from the film. So just bear with me, everybody. I'm going to just show the part about Anna May Wong.
As the movie industry that grew out of Hollywood changed the world forever, a Chinese girl looked towards the silver screen and dared to dream.
Hollywood as a filmmaking industry started in 1910, and by the mid to late teens, you were just getting companies founded almost every day out here. Anna May Wong, who was like the top Chinese American actress, very well respected, a really fine actress. Unfortunately, she was caught in this strange netherworld, as it were.
While Hollywood produced many films that capitalized on the exoticism of Chinese themes that audiences flocked to see, Chinese characters were constantly portrayed in a negative and stereotypical light. Furthermore, Chinese roles were mostly filled by Caucasian actors who utilized a makeup practice called yellow face.
You wouldn't dare.
Wong has dared many things. He will continue to dare. One day, it is acclaimed by all Kila.
But despite the odds stacked against her, Anna May Wong believed in her dreams and was determined to be a star.
Anna May's childhood was very difficult. She was one of several children born to basically a working class family in downtown Los Angeles. They lived in the Chinatown area of Los Angeles at the time. Her childhood was hard because she worked at her family's laundry business. So right away you can see that she had a very hard life. But she also had a great imagination. And she was very mischievous and very curious. So whenever she had to take the laundry, delivered the laundry to her father's customers, a lot of times in downtown LA at that time, they were filming silent movies. So she would kind of stop, put her basket down, and kind of just start watching. And she started asking everybody questions. She would just go up to an extra, she would go up to the actors, to the director, to the cinematographer, and just start asking questions like, what's the camera for? Why is she doing that? What's the story about? And they got used to her, and they started calling her the curious Chinese child.
Anna May Wong was third-generation Chinese American, but she thought of herself and was perceived as Chinese. The concept of Chinese American doesn't really take hold until after World War II.
Okay, everybody.
What was interesting
so
is
we can
that
get
she
really
kind
absorbed
of
in this
looked
film,
very different from a
but we have limited time. So that was a clip for everybody who hasn't seen the film yet, and then we encourage you to see the whole thing because it's amazing. So the experts that you had, Alex. So for those of you at home, if you recognize Paula Yu, she is a television writer and producer, executive producer. She wrote on The West Wing. She also authored a book about Anna May Wong. So she's a perfect example of an Asian American writer and producer who's made it in Hollywood, who's broken boundaries herself, and then is also very connected to our Chinese American history with her book on Anna May Wong. The film historians that you picked, Alex, as well as Lisa See, who everybody knows as the author of On Gold Mountain. I have 2 copies of her books. So I was just kind of curious how you determined your list of scholars and how it came about that the people participated in the film, you know, and who didn't make it, who made it.
Absolutely. So everybody was really gracious. You mentioned Lisa C. So let me talk about her for a minute. Lisa C. had a great advantage that she stayed with us in the entire film, meaning that we covered all the 4 stories with her. Most of the other experts had a particular area or particular field. Like he mentioned, Paula Yu, she had Anna May Wong. There's other people that specialize in Madam Chiang Kai-shek and so on. But Lisa C. And Mr. Zach, they both stayed with us the entire film from the very beginning, all the segments in the film. Lisa C. was extremely, extremely gracious. We sent her a regular email on her fan email, which is you know, on the web everybody have, explain what we're doing, and she responded right away. We met her once in a shop that had been in her family for years, and we taped most of the morning there. We didn't finish, and she had enough material that she was gracious enough to invite us the following day to shoot in her house. So she essentially dedicated 2 full days for us, and obviously we're just extremely, extremely grateful for that. So not only the time, but she's basically kind of an encyclopedia on everything related to the topic. So she was giving a story, she was giving examples, she was explaining things, she was putting things into context, and that was tremendously useful. The other experts, for the most part, we identified them either because we knew somebody who knew them, or because they have written books on the topic, and we reached out to them. You know, we did research to get their emails, explain to them what we are doing, and they were kind enough to interview us.
That's great.
Or to let us interview them. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. So we have a question from CCIS President. How do you see the film? We thought this is what we joined the link for. So we're here to talk about the film with the filmmaker, but how can we currently see the film?
So as a part of the, I think the museum send a link to everybody along with the password. So that's where it is. The film was broadcast on PBS, Southern California here. And I'm doing some touches on it. And what I'm hoping afterward is we'll see if Netflix is interested. If they are not, we'll give it as a present to PBS. And because they showed interest, so I'm pretty sure they will be interested to broadcast it again. Okay. In the meantime, if you just send me an email, there is a website for the film. If you just Google it, or the website is called goldmountainmovie.com. My contact information is there. Just send me a note and I'll send you a link.
After this event, we're going to be sending out the link.
Excellent, excellent.
Thank you.
I'm back, by the way.
Hi.
Good,
hi.
good.
Everyone say hi to David.
Hello. I apologize. My computer crashed and I was afraid to shut it off because I didn't know if it would end our webinar. So.
No, that's great. We have a question from Susan Y. Have you had interest in your film from overseas, especially China? Alex.
So I wish I could say yes, but no. But in big part, it's not because you're not interested, but because you don't know about the film. The festival that the film was shown was mostly in the U.S. In Asia was like in Indonesia and Bali, and then Bali is in Indonesia, but a couple of these areas. But I didn't have any contact in China to like show it there. I would love to do that. I just have not been successful to do that. But I would love to. I would definitely love to.
Great. Another question from Susie Noon. Alex, how much was spent to make this documentary? What was the most memorable event you had while making this movie? So I guess the first part, what was your budget?
It was, it really wasn't that expensive. The actual production, the interviews and so on was like around 25,000. The post was around 50,000. So altogether, let's say 75,000. There's additional costs that you have to that. But let's say it's something between 75 to 100,000. The most memorable, really, the interviews with key people. The time when with Judy Chu, she was very. I want to use the word charismatic. I'm not sure that this is the correct word, but very charming, but very charming, very dignified way. I mean, it was you could tell that you're in the presence of a great person. The same thing with the professor that we did not use as much, Dr. Maramoto from UCLA. He was an encyclopedian, was very interesting. A lot of what he said, we included in the film, but there was not enough stories to put it anywhere else. But again, it was really very memorable, to talking to him.
And then the other part was, what was the most memorable event you had while making this movie?
So this is what I meant about meeting with Judy Chu.
Okay.
That's the most memorable part for me.
The event. Okay, thank you. And a question from Stan New: how many viewers have seen this movie? Okay. Have you been able to have messages?
So when it was in PBS, I mean that would have been like wild viewership. In addition to that, have been like in quite a lot of festivals. So I don't have an exact number, but it is they have been public or mass viewership for it.
Yeah, great. Question from Matthew Bryant: I was struck by the similarities between the struggles of Chinese Americans and African Americans, the bigotry, segregation in housing and schools, stereotyping in film, white actors playing them, and even massacres after propaganda-fueled news. Do you have plans to continue in this area, as so few are talking about this history?
I apologize. I just did the sound in the last 10 seconds, so I didn't get the question.
Oh, so he was struck by the similarities between the struggles of Chinese Americans and African Americans. Do you have plans to continue in this area, as so few are talking about this history? So I think you mentioned your series of stories for future films.
Yes, I would absolutely love to do that. I would absolutely love to do that. Just to bring the story of different people from different backgrounds, put it in. Then again, one of the things that I learned while doing this film is that we are all very close to each other in terms of the way we think, in terms of emotions, in terms of how we about things. And it would be really tremendous to see people from so many different backgrounds, so many stories, and so many generations, and be able to relate to each and every one of them.
Yeah, I think you've hit upon lots of universal themes in your films. So Michelle asked the question, how did you decide which women to include? So we've touched upon this in terms of the women per time period and women in various different areas of specialization, politics, film. But so perhaps we could ask you, were there anybody that you didn't include, any women or even any men, to narrow down this list of 4?
Okay, so the sound is coming and going, but I get the gist of the story. So if I'm answering something else, please correct me. There have been a lot of very interesting stories. It really make you know, very interesting stories. There are stories. There's a lady that was close here. There was the story. So that would be the story of her grandmother when she came here, and her husband passed away at some point. They carried him at some place, and she would go every year to his grave. Went 1 year and found out that they built a freeway over what otherwise would have been the grave of her late husband. Her story and what she did about it, that was very interesting. It's also a very moving story. And there are a lot of similar stories of people that have done things, you know, tremendously for their kids or their grandkids, or, you know, the trouble that they have gone through to see that the next generation is better than their own life and the sacrifice they have done for them. There's so many of these small stories. I say small because of the time that to be allocated to it, not because it's a small story. It's obviously big stories. But there's so many of them that we couldn't fit in the film and keep it like for an hour and 20 minutes, which is the current length. Also, there is some legal issues, like, for example, how the Chinese Exclusion Act came about. What was the forces for it? What was the forces against it? But to put these things in, it becomes complicated, and it will take from the flow of the film. So we put only the segments that people will get it. And at some point, I thought it would be good to have this like in a director cut, or put it in the web or something, the items that we cut out so people can still see it. I didn't do that, but maybe we'll do that hopefully soon.
Yes, back in the days of DVDs, you'd have special features.
That's true, that's true.
And additional content. We have a question from Betty Russell. I really enjoyed the profiles of the 4 amazing women. Do you have any plans to delve further into the history of the first Chinese men to immigrate to the US and the practice of saving money, going home to China, starting a family, and returning to the US? Her grandfather came to America when he was 12. Father was born in China and came as a paper son when he was 29. Also, do you have recommendations for books? Well, she loves Lisa C's books. So the first part of the question, do you have any plans to delve further into the history of the first Chinese men to immigrate to the US?
I would love to do that. I would love to do that. I don't have a solid plans to do that, but definitely if I know enough, or that there's enough stories, definitely we'll go ahead and do that, and we would love to do that. In terms of the books, there's really, Lisa C books are everybody knows about them, and I highly recommend them. There's 2 other books that I would like to recommend. One is called The Chinatown Wars, by Mr. Zach. He was interviewed in the film. And then the other one is called the Snakehead. It's about immigrants nowadays and the trouble that they go through it. Both books are very interesting, and it is a very interesting read, but also kind of an eye opener to what it takes for people to migrate here.
Yes, and may I also recommend my book, Chinatown in Los Angeles.
By the way, I went and I got this book. This is a very lovely book. I also highly recommend that.
Yes, you can see a whole lot of photos. There's over 200 photos of Chinese and Chinese Americans in Los Angeles. And then my other book, Chinese in Hollywood. So if you go on Amazon, you can get both of them. And then my third book, which is Chinatown and China City in Los Angeles. And this is a postcard history of Chinatown, because a lot of people collect postcards.
We're going to put your website up at the end.
Yes, on my Amazon page. Right now they're ranked, I think, in number 2 billion on Amazon. So maybe you guys can just, you know, if one person buys a book, then it rises like by 100,000. You can get me into the 1.9 ranking. I'd appreciate it.
We're going to work on it.
These are really good books.
Thank you. Okay, great. We also have another book recommendation from Jeannie and Steve Lowe, Immigrant Voices and Stories Through Angel Island Immigration Station. Thank you so much. Kindle for my book, not possible. It's too expensive. Okay, so I think we can perhaps show one clip. David, do you have any remarks you want to make?
No, I just want to apologize for my technical problems. I was afraid to shut my computer off because I thought I would end the webinar. But, you know, I just wanted to thank both of you for the work that you're doing to tell these underrepresented stories, both in Alex's film and the books that you've written, Jenny. It's, you know, really helps get this as to be understood as part of an American history that, you know, we all need to know.
Yes, and I'm excited for the time when we can all watch movies again together. So hopefully next year we'll be there.
Not on Zoom.
Right? Christina Poi. Hi, everybody. Hi, Christina. Phyllis Lin. Are you planning to make a film on 21st century Chinese American women, Alex? So women this
yeah, again, I'd be very interested on that. I don't have an actual plan, but I would love to. I mean, that would be a great topic.
Alex, I think we've outlined several movies for you to make.
That's right.
You got a deal.
That's right.
We had a question from Anya. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Gricuk. Do you have any advice for those wishing to get involved in the field of Chinese American documentary making, other media related to Chinese Americans?
Absolutely. So let me break it into two parts: the documentary making, and then the historical part. The filmmaking is really pretty easy. It's very simple. If I could do it, it's very simple, very straightforward. It takes some organization and some initiative. Very minimum resources are needed. And when I say it's really not difficult at all, I mean it. So it is please get into the field and put your thoughts so other people can see it. In the historical side, it's this tremendous amount of information that are not known, are not documented. And for better or for worse, we are at a time that a lot of these things could disappear. So, I mean, now everything is being recorded, but 50 years ago, it was not. And there's a lot of stories that would like to capture, would like to talk to people and try to capture it. The Library of Los Angeles, at some point, they had a project called Oral History, in which they will talk to immigrants, to grandparents, to people, and just get them to record their memories. There's tremendous of information, tremendous of wealth available on tapes, and there's probably stories, and there's probably things that you will learn a lot more by listening to these tapes or visiting these than doing research on Google or getting a book. So I highly recommend to do that. There's literally thousands upon thousands of stories of every kind available for people to dig into, to learn about them, and then to present it to other people.
Yeah,
so please do that.
You pretty much picked something you were interested in and figured it out.
That's it. That's very true.
And then you used pretty much your own money, like not grants or anything like that.
That's correct. Yes.
So saving money and having a practical job actually helps.
But you see, again, it's you can do films, very good films, virtually without any cost. Literally, if you have a story and the phones, we have a different project now, and because of the project involves animals, very often we can't use like large cameras and so on. So a lot of it being recorded on iPhones. When you put them on very large screens, people cannot tell what's being shot with a professional camera and what's being shot with an iPhone. So there's really no excuse. You can do things very cheaply or almost with no money at all. And then, as you mentioned, there's grains and there's other things. But from my experience, if the amount of effort that you will put into getting grants and so on, one, you will not get a lot of money. You'll get a small amount of money. You probably can cut this amount and do the film cheaper without it. So it's just my recommendation. It's easy. It could be done easily. Just jump in and get it done.
Wow, that's really great, Alex. Thank you for that inspiration.
Alex, during your process, did you, we were talking about oral histories, did you actually record some oral histories as you went around and interviewed different people or historians or Judy Cho?
For every interview was really basically two sets. For the most part, we'll meet with people one-on-one and just without cameras and talk about what the project is about and their background and so on. And the scenes were not recorded. And then for the physical interview, we would record it. And obviously, like a lot of these things, the portion that makes it to the film is small compared to what's being recorded. You might, but everything we taped on both audio and also camera. The project about the oral history is for the city of Los Angeles. And well, it's just tremendous project. But also a lot of people, if you get them engaged, they can talk on and on and on. If you add a camera to it, there's always, it takes a little bit more to forget the camera. So the advantage of the oral history, the recording is tremendous.
Right.
So another question from Valerie, has this been a profitable venture for you at this point, Alex? Have you made any money?
Yeah, so it had been extremely profitable. It didn't make money, but it had been profitable in many other ways. It's for me, it's very rewarding and definitely will do it again. But then again, I didn't get into it with the hope that I'll make a profit out of it.
Yes, it's definitely spiritually rewarding, community-based reward.
Yeah, in different levels, it will be very difficult to enumerate them or say this and that. There's so many areas. You yourself, I'm talking about myself, you develop a lot. You meet a lot of interesting people. You see things differently. There's so many advantages other than the financial advantage.
Has anybody in the film seen it, like Judy Cho or Paula or Lisa C? What has been the feedback from the participants?
Yes, they all saw it. So we had several screenings, obviously, and we invited them all. And also when it was in PBS, I get feedback afterwards from the people that have seen it. So everybody has seen it, and virtually everybody was complimentary. So that is rewarding on multiple levels. One, because they liked it, but also because you're always worried that you want to make sure that they're also happy about these things themselves. Not that the entire story is good, but when you record a person and this person sees himself or herself, you want them to be also happy about this part.
Yes, so it's good. So for those of you at home, you want to learn some lighting techniques pretty quickly. Good lighting is key, as well as good sound. We have a question. We have a couple questions about the museum, which we'll save to the end. And then we have a question from Velda. Do any of these women in your movie come to the US on the ships? I guess coming from China on the ships. So it's more of a personal, the details of the background of the ladies that you profiled. Did any of them come to the US on ships?
So definitely the ladies in the very first segment, Xingyi and Xingyu. So both of them would have come in on ships. Would have been the only way to come in that time. I am not sure how Madam Shak came in. I would guess also on a ship because her sister was held on Angel's Island. So we know that came in now by ship. That's the answer that I have. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to show a quick clip of Madam Chiang Kai-shek's visit, just like a minute, because we only have 10 more minutes, you guys. So if you want to share questions with Alex, get them in now.
In their occupation of Nanking, the Japs again outdid themselves in barbarism. The helpless populace was trapped by the city walls and could not flee.
In 1941, the United States officially entered World War II. America and China were now allies in war, and Madam Chiang found herself in a new alliance with her adopted country.
I can also assure you that China is eager and ready to cooperate with you and other peoples to lay a true and lasting foundation for a sane and inclusive world society which would make it impossible for any arrogant or predatory neighbor to plunge future generations into another orgy of blood.
So I just wanted to show you that little excerpt of Madam Chiang Kai-shek speaking, because I don't think we really get to hear her voice that often. We see really powerful photos of her, but it's really special that you found actual footage with sound of her speeches. Alex, can you tell us a little bit about the the sourcing of the archives for the historic films?
Absolutely. So in the film, I have two segments or two shots. Congresswoman Jenny Cho, she's at the podium on the Congress, and she's standing talking, and behind her her three nieces. There's two shots of that, and these two we got from C-SPAN, and we paid for it. Everything else is in the public domain. So there's tremendous amount of information in public domains. There's different websites that allow that. You might need to have a person to go and dig in different libraries and then pay for the cost of copying. But other than that, everything else came from public domain. Now, again, I don't want to underestimate the amount of effort or underplay the amount of effort that goes into research to look into it and to make sure that it is indeed in public domain. But there's, again, tremendous amount of information available in public domains.
Great. We have another question. Have you heard of polybemis? No, I haven't. Have you? Someone named Polybemis, aka Lalu Nathoy. I don't know if I'm saying that right. If anybody's heard of Polybemis, please feel free to share in the chat. So we're here at 6:53. I wanted to, there was a question, David, actually for you, if you could tell us a little bit more about your background and the museum and what the museum is up to. How are you guys doing during the pandemic and at any events?
Yep, so it's a little strange to introduce myself this far into the event because I couldn't do it earlier on, but I'm David Uwe. I'm the executive director of the Chinese American Museum. And we're part of a team building a new museum in DC, the first of its kind, dedicated to the Chinese American story, the history, the culture, everything Chinese American. The concept came up together in about 2017, and we've acquired a building. We've been renovating it for the past few years. We actually, in 2019, we started to open our doors for sneak peek hours, but because of the pandemic, and also that we are developing the rest of the permanent museum, we haven't been open recently. We're hoping that changes down the road, but we are a museum still in development, and we are hoping to open the next wave of our permanent museum in the upcoming spring, perhaps early summer. We're still forging ahead with the development of the museum and putting together online content like this in the meantime, which, you know, it's actually a unique opportunity this push towards a lot of online events to really reach a lot of people. We're getting we had about 800 people register for this event, and you know, you'd be hard pressed to sometimes have a live event with that many people. So it's an exciting way to reach people all over the country and introduce them to amazing people like Jenny and Alex, and just continue, like I said earlier, tell these underrepresented stories that really need to be told and understood and known so that they're recognized as an important part of American history.
Thanks, David. So a lot of people have been asking, you know, about upcoming projects for Alex. Alex, what are the films you're actually currently working on, and tell us about, give us a synopsis and why you got interested in that topic.
Absolutely. So I touched on a short about Anna May Wong. Essentially, it's a short that kind of intermingle her love, the story of the good earth. She tried to get the job for it, and the poem that was written about her, these foolish things. So, and the challenge is to put all the free stories within 15 minutes. So we just had the script done and did a couple of table reads, and hopefully once the pandemic is behind us,
I think Alex froze. Oh dear. Okay, you guys, well, since Alex froze, I'm gonna quickly share a little clip of Judy Chu and see if he can refresh his screen, and we can,
I was walking across the quad when somebody handed me a flyer for something that I'd never heard of before, which was an Asian American Studies class. So I took that class, and it was like a light went off in my head. I learned about the Chinese Exclusion Act. I learned about the Japanese concentration camps. I learned about all these discriminatory laws that had served to discriminate against the Asian American community. And that's when I thought I really had to change the course of my life. For a generation of our ancestors, like my grandfather, who were told for 6 decades by the US government that the land of the free wasn't open to them, it is long past time that Congress officially and formally acknowledges these ugly laws that targeted Chinese immigrants and express sincere regret for these actions. When I was elected to Congress in 2009, a group of national Chinese American organizations came to me, and they said, now is the time to finally get an apology for the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. It had been 130 years since it was passed. It was one of the most discriminatory laws ever passed in Congress. We were able to get it passed in both the Senate and in the House of Representatives. It was unanimous, and it was only the 4th such apology to ever happen in history.
Okay, guys, so I'm coming back. We are just about out of time. It seems we've lost Alex. But David, we had a request from our attendees to have a list of the recommended books in the chat. I think that's a great idea. Maybe,
okay, we could send that out.
Absolutely. When this recording will be available for posterity, David will also send a link when that's available.
Let me see if I could share the screen without crashing.
And we had an answer as to who was polybemus. Thank you, Jamie Cleland. I want to thank everybody for attending. We have 1 minute left. We surged to a good amount of attendees, and we're really, really honored to have all of you join us from all over the place. Definitely different cities and states, and I think I saw a couple people out of the country. So thank you so much, everybody. We hope you enjoyed today's program. And that wasn't me, but that was Alex's film, and the links are up here provided by David. Let's see, do you have any concluding remarks, David?
Yeah, well, all the registrants will receive an email And I believe that Zoom also puts up our page at the end of this this session, but you'll receive an email that has some more detail than even this screen here. So. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And you know, as I said, you know, we appreciate your support. And let's see if we can get Jenny's ranking on Amazon up from 2 million to 1 million.
Yes, 1 million people. We can do it.
Ranked number 1 million. And then if you want to learn more about the museum, please visit our website and follow us on social media, join our mailing list. If you'd like to support the museum, you could also do that on our website. And then please visit Alex's website too to keep tabs on his latest projects as well. Jenny, are you working on a new book?
I am not working on a new book. I'm currently a professional editor, so I'm editing films, and that works about well for me because I don't spend any money and I can tell stories. So
it's a labor of love.
A labor of love. Well, thank you all. Thank you to the museum and David and Penny Yao, and thank you so much for having me on board. We want to thank Alex Azmi. I think he was having technical difficulties in LA, but I know he very much enjoyed being a part of this event. And thank you for supporting the film. We hope to see you at a future program.
Yeah, take care.
Bye, everybody.